other finishing touch that you would put in a room to make sure everything looks good?
Okay, so this one's easy breezy. Just add something shiny.
Cool. And
bring in a mirror. Yeah, a silver serving tray. It could even be like the lacquer or something on your furniture, but easy breezy, something shiny.
And I guess shiny could be wallpaper too, right?
It could. If you get like a metallic one, it could be, yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Which I've seen lots of great metallic wallpapers that I quite love.
Yeah, actually, so have I, actually. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Anything else that you would suggest as another finishing touch?
Sorry, yeah, before I move on, I was going to say a great place for awesome wallpaper is Higgin West. So Higgin West, they're based in the States, but they do ship to Canada, but they have lots of really fun, awesome wallpaper and some metallic stuff too. Yeah.
Where can people find that wallpaper? You said it was Higgin West. Is that a store or is it only online?
It's an online store. You know what? I'm willing to bet that probably there's a retailer in Toronto that carries it, but I don't know where.
Okay.
But it's HYGGE and West.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
And it's glorious. Yeah. Okay, so the next one's actually really easy too. It's just adding light. So basically, get some plants. I every time I work with a client, I always ask them, how do you feel about plants? Because I know plants are not everybody's best friend, me included. I think it was last year, I told myself, you know what, it's time. I'm gonna take care of a plant. It's gonna be great. But I'm gonna figure out which ones I can't kill because that's really important.
Yep.
But it just does so much. Like I'm sure you know, when you're staging homes, you do this, but I don't even know what it is, but bringing in a plant, I mean, obviously it brings in great colors and whatnot, but it brings in its own kind of texture as well. But yeah, plants. I love them.
Yeah, no.
And there's lots of great ones you can't kill, so there's no excuse.
That's so funny. There's lots of great ones you can't kill until you meet me. I mean, I'm trying.
I was just gonna say, if I'm being honest, I'm kind of killing the ones that you can't kill, but I'm trying.
Well, I had
sometimes it's not about the plant.
Of course, but I had some bamboo once, and I was like, bamboo's great. Yeah. I'm not going to kill the bamboo. Anyways, it lasted for a few years.
But then you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I did the same. It was college. and I definitely killed them. And I think you have to get 3 bamboos, right? That's the whole thing? You get 3, something about luck? Did I just make that up?
Actually, I think it's more like 7 or 8. One is luck, one is prosperity, one is something else. So I think I had 8 of them because I was going for the full prosperity thing, right? So,
that's what I did wrong.
But, I do, some plants I can let live and others I'm having an issue with. The biggest saving grace I've had for plants is, what's that company called? They have self-watering plants. And so what that means is there's like a little thermometer on top, like a test tube almost, on top of the plant, on the top of the planter. Oh. And you can see the rise and fall of it, so you know when to water your plant. And so once you fill up the base so that the tube is all the way to the top, it will just water itself. And so then you just go back and water it whenever you see that little stick down. So that's probably been my biggest saving grace to making plants work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I did get a plant thermometer, or I don't know what you call it, but, to check a moisture meter, not a thermometer, a moisture meter. And my partner always makes fun of me because every time he walks by, he's like, it's always on the, dry. And I say, I'm told, I do my research and it's, you're not supposed to overwater a plant either, which is what I think I was very early on in my plant career.
Right.
That's how I was killing plants was, you think that you have to water them, but that's also not good.
Exactly.
But plants, they're not easy, but they're worth it if you can figure them out.
Interesting.
Another thing you can do too, if you're not into plants, but I do feel like get yourself a nice little snake plant. They're super cheap, super easy to maintain, and they're great. But you can also bring in things like get a bowl of lemons or something like that, or apples. It kind of does the trick as well.
Which is what a lot of the stagers do, I find. There's always a bowl of red apples or green apples or lemons or oranges sitting on the countertop. So I do notice that in homes that are staged. There is always that, for sure.
Nice.
Absolutely. What's next on your...
The next one is basically just adding light. So a lot of people, when they're dealing with a room, they assume, okay, this overhead light, whether I have pot lights or even just like a light fixture, they feel like that's enough. You know what? It's really bright. It's great. I don't really need anything else. But you really want to try to incorporate 3 light sources into your space. So ambient light is basically like natural light coming in through your windows, or your overhead light, which is just kind of there in your room. But in addition to that, you want to roll in like your task lighting or your decorative lighting. And these are the things that, you know, you got your floor lamp, your table lamp, maybe you add sconces onto the wall in certain areas. And it's not always about it, you know, helping you see better. It's really kind of just making that room feel kind of finished and polished again. So it's, you know, it's just one of those things where even a floor or a table lamp can be a decorative object. It can help you bring in color. It can bring pattern if you get something with a cool pattern on it. So I try to think about it more as like, you know, yeah, sure, it's great. It's going to help me see better, but it's also going to help make the space feel really polished.
That makes a lot of sense.
That one's pretty easy.
Can you speak to a little bit about light bulbs in general? Because, so for example, when I go to Home Depot, I could get either a warm light bulb or like a white light bulb. So which one do you think is better for a room, or does it just depend on the room?
I think it depends, but what I'm not into is that really yellow looking light where it's just everything feels kind of like your walls start to look yellow. So I prefer like a really a bright bulb that feels more white.
Okay.
But I do think it's probably a matter of preference. I will say that if you can get all your lights on dimmers, you can buy things that you plug in even to a floor lamp or a table lamp that will allow you to even dim those. And obviously if you're doing that, get proper dimmable bulbs.
Right.
But you know, it's really nice to be able to have your overhead light on, but not have it blasting, you know, because it's really unflattering light from up above. So it's nice to be able to have it on, but kind of dim it down and still kind of create a nice atmosphere. So that's one big tip I would suggest, is get everything on dimmers.
Okay.
And if you don't have your fixtures on dimmers, it's a really easy thing to do. Not that I'm suggesting anybody does this themselves, but you know, even if you have somebody like an electrician to come in, I don't think it's a major job at all, but it's totally worth it.
Awesome. Okay, that sounds great. What else you got for us?
Okay, so the second last one is another super simple one, and it's just to add black. So basically, I would say designers fall into 2 schools of thought, and one is every room should have like one thing that's red, and then others subscribe to like every room should have one thing that's black. And I'm more of the make sure your room has one thing that's black in it as opposed to the red. But basically it's, you know, it could be your picture frames, it could be a vase. And my suggestion for this is obviously blacks can be really heavy. So depending on how you incorporate black into your room, just make sure that it's not sticking out like a sore thumb where your eye goes immediately there, and try to balance it out, you know, throughout the room if you need to.
Interesting.
So that's easy breezy.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember at one point.
It is interesting.
Someone had told me about adding, you know, black into a room, and I was like, oh, that's so scary. I just feel like, you know, you don't want things to be dark. But I mean, and maybe that was a few years ago, because now I do feel I'm a lot more accustomed to black. And so now I'm like, oh, that sounds like an interesting idea. I mean, one of the ideas that I used to pull some black into my kitchen was actually a chalkboard wall. So I had someone paint a chalkboard wall. So I've got that accent black wall in the room.
Yep.
So yeah, that's
that actually in a client's house.
Oh, really?
I'm presenting this weekend and in her kitchen too. So fun. And she's got kids too, so I think it's like a fun little thing. Like, you know, while she's cooking or he's cooking, the kids can come play on the chalkboard too.
Totally.
I think too, with the black by default, chances are you've already like not even intentionally incorporated black, like your coffee table or side table. Chances are it's already there.
Right.
It's probably not even something you have to think about. You know, if you take a scan around your room and you're like, whoa, everything's feeling really like there's no black anywhere.
Right.
Then just something to, you know, find yourself a little vase, add a little picture frame, done.
Awesome. That sounds great. And what else is on your list of things for a finishing touch of a room?
Right. Yeah, so this is the last one, and it's just to add a statement piece. So, you know, this may have actually already happened. Maybe your statement piece ended up being the wallpaper that you chose that was fabulous. Or, you know, maybe you want to find a piece of art that's really amazing, or a really cool chair that, you know, nobody else in the world has. But basically just a statement piece, or I like to call it your personality. So do something to bring in something interesting that kind of reflects who you are into your home. because at the end of the day, it's your home and you really want to feel like it's personal. You want to feel comfortable. And I also like, when people come in, they take a glance around and they're like, this is your home and this is kind of where you're supposed to be.
Right.
That just gives me the warm fuzzies. I love that.
Awesome. That sounds great. Cool. Anything else that you're sort of...
Those are my 8 tips.
Those are your 8 tips.
There you go.
Anything...
Those are my 8 tips.
Anything else that you're noticing right now in sort of trends with your clients, things that people are liking or not liking to do in their homes?
I think a big one right now is really deep saturated walls. And I think that's another, I feel like there's a lot of stuff happening that is very polarizing. So like I said, the rattan stuff, it can be really polarizing. I think that deep saturated walls, so like a really deep navy, or Benjamin Moore's color of the year is called Shadow, and it's like this really deep, like plum purple color. And I think it's a really great color if you kind of have the courage to do it, or in the right space, obviously. But that's a big one I'm seeing right now. And I just think it's kind of like people either love it or hate it. There's no real in between. They love it and they just like, no, I couldn't.
And for that saturated wall, is that something they're doing as an accent wall, or are they painting their whole rooms plum and deep navy?
I think you were seeing it. I think people are not committing, so they're doing accent walls. But you're seeing a lot more of an entire room painted in this really deep saturated color. And I think, again, like if you have the right room for it and you have the right natural light, I think it can be really awesome and it makes a real statement. Another, like one thing I think is a good way, instead of doing an accent wall, because like I said, for me, accent walls I just don't think every room should have an accent wall. I don't even mean every room in your house. I just mean like they're not for every room, and it's not something that you should just do. I think it's, sometimes it's better to just commit to the entire room, with the same color. But a nice way to kind of break it up, I think, would be with some wainscoting. So, you can have like the really nice white trim with the wainscoting about, a third of the way up the wall, and then you do the really deep saturated color on the upper portion of your wall, and then it doesn't feel like you've committed quite so hard, and it's still not an accent wall, but it's kind of bringing in the best of both worlds. I think that can look really beautiful.
Awesome. That sounds great. Actually, on the subject of accent walls, I was thinking at one point about putting a brick wall in my place, and it was going to be an accent wall. But one of my girlfriends was like, don't do it. She's like, it's going to be so hard to remove. Brick walls are out. And so I wanted to ask you, is she right? Are brick walls out? Was I thinking the wrong thing? Tell me.
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, interestingly, our house has a brick wall facade, but we did not know that until we started dealing with our electrical when we moved in. So we were like, cool, exposed brick, but it had been painted. But we were like, this is so cool, we love it. And then all of a sudden we were like figuring out like the facade's like falling off and it's a half brick, and we were like, oh, okay, this isn't even real. I'm into exposed brick. I'm really into it. I'm not into it. I prefer it to be the actual architecture of the house as opposed to a facade personally. And I think too, like depending on where you put it, if it makes sense, for me, it's like it has to make sense. Like, if let's just say you do go with a facade, and there's some really nice ones out there that look really great and real. For me, it's like just make sure it's a wall that it could potentially actually be a brick wall on the other side, as opposed to like some random wall in the middle of the house, like in the interior. Do you know what I mean? Like,
got it.
So at least you're like, you know what? Is it a brick wall? Is it actually for real? But I'm into it. I'm personally more into it if it's like an actual, part of your home that you've exposed.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds
so I'm
great.
going to say I'm 50-50 on that one.
Okay. 50-50 with conditions. You just have to kind of see.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Caveats, disclaimers, all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so funny. So can you tell our listeners how they can reach you if they've got some more designer questions?
Totally. So if you want to learn more about my services or check out my portfolio, you can go to michellebinette.com. And that's MichellElleBinette.com. Or I would actually prefer to invite you to my Facebook group, which is called Dream Homies, and you can request access to that by going to dreamhomies.com. So it's basically just a place where people can ask for advice, post pictures from their home, ask questions, and myself and all of the other homies in the group will kind of chime in and give you advice and kind of help you along the way.
Cool. Awesome. And in terms of real estate, are you a renter, an owner, and what part of the city do you live in?
I'm an owner. I think I'm going on, time flies by, I think I'm going on 4 years, and I'm in East Toronto, so